Thompson heaving one down the sideline, and he's got Kazmeir Allen over the top. Big side, down the sideline. Touchdown. His signature move and his signature performance. Allen, big ball one more time. 58 yards this time.
You're listening to the Bruin Bible. This is your host, Will Decker, bringing you UCLA football content all throughout the year for LA Football Network.
What is up, and welcome to the latest edition of the Bruin Bible. Before we get into what the football topics are today, we got to give a major shout out to the UCLA women's soccer team for taking home the national championship. A 3-2 victory, down 2-0, scored a goal in the final 20 seconds to tie the game, eventually won it in overtime. UCLA women's getting to the job done. Madman, were you able to catch some of the highlights for this game as a UCLA alum?
Yes, I was, Will, and it was just so exciting. I mean, unreal that it was 2-0 North Carolina, and then the Bruins valiantly get that first goal, and then 16 seconds to go, and they execute on the corner kick, and we're in World Cup season, so you can tell how rare that is to be able to actually execute successfully on a corner kick, especially when the game is on the line. So it felt like they were a team of destiny. And always so great to have another national championship at UCLA. Add one more trophy to that J.D. Morgan Center Hall of Fame. So always a source of great pride for the Bruins of UCLA.
Incredible stuff. The 120th national title for UCLA athletics. So we'll take it. That's a beautiful, sparkly number to add to UCLA. We're going to talk about the Sun Bowl getting selected there, the Pitt Panthers, who they're playing. But the guys we got to start about first is Ethan Young gave out a boom this morning, one of those infamous tweets that get UCLA fans as hyped as humanly possible. And we got the guy that I don't think I was expecting, Oluwafemi Oladejo, one of the most productive linebackers within the Pac-12, 91 tackles this year, the fifth most within the conference, 4.5 tackles for a loss. An impact player, and Bruins fans will remember just a couple weeks ago, this guy had 17 total tackles against the likes of UCLA. He had 11 against Notre Dame this year and 13 against Stanford. This is a big-time player, and this is a guy that was legitimately one of the top 25 transfers on the market, given that this is the biggest and most amount of transfers there have been in the college football portal, since the portal has opened up officially. Madman. We wanted to start off on a strong note, and I think we just did that by acquiring this guy. Give me your initial take on acquiring Oladejo because, if Muasau cannot play next year, we have a guy that could slide right in next to JonJon Vaughns and be a complete impact player.
Yeah, Will, I think you said it best there. Oladejo, he had 17 tackles in the Cal UCLA game just a couple weeks ago. So understanding the impact that he had against UCLA, we saw what he was up close and personal. And by all accounts, he's perfectly aligned to what Chip wants to do in terms of, filling a need. Obviously, we always talk about how can we improve this defense, and specifically anything we can do in the front seven is always a huge benefit. But then B, it's that other picture outside of football. He's transferring from another UC school. The academics are top notch. The values are top-notch, and those are really the guys that Chip is attacking in this transfer portal. So I think it's an absolute home run scenario. You mentioned Muasau. I think there's a decent probability here, Will. Latu, Muasau, Keho, Carl Jones Jr., some combination of those four are going to the draft. And so there is going to be some depth concerns at linebacker next year. And to have Oladejo kind of fill in right there with his explosiveness, I think is going to be really critical and helps UCLA stay seamless year over year, because that's what it's all about. It's about sustained success. How can you build on this year and now take it to the next level? Chip has been able to get winning percentage up every year for the first 5 years. So how can he get that trend to continue? It's by getting guys like Oladejo.
And it's really encouraging because I think the linebacker room took a gigantic step forward this year with Muasau, JonJon Vaughns. And the big part of that was the Ken Norton Jr. hire. A guy that's been an NFL defensive coordinator, a legend at UCLA, coming back to right the ship for them. So I don't know if we even have a chance to acquire a guy like Oladejo without the likes of Ken Norton Jr. being there. I mean, this is not Muasau, for as good as he is, he's about 6'1", 220, 225. This guy is 6'3", 255. This guy is an NFL prospect. And the guy that caught my attention for who tweeted it out is Bruce Feldman, who does his annual Freaks list. I think there's a real good chance he's going to be on the Freaks list. One of my favorite articles in the preseason when it comes to all of college football. The size aspect of Oladejo is great. The sideline to sideline linebacking play he can make is just going to be a game changer for the likes of UCLA moving forward. Madman, give me your take on just what Ken Norton Jr. has meant so far to UCLA, because the impact has been clearly felt, and you can see it with the jump of play in the guy like JonJon Vaughns.
No, Will, it's been so significant. It's been a breath of fresh air, because when you look at Ken Norton Jr. and the boxes that he can check for a recruit, we just haven't had that at a coordinator position in so many years, really since, the late 90s. And when you look at Bruin alum, played at UCLA. So you check that box in terms of relatability to what it's like to be a top-notch student athlete at UCLA. Then you look at playing in the NFL, winning Super Bowls with the Cowboys and the Niners, only guy to win 3 straight Super Bowls. And so he checks that box about, I can get you to the league because I understand it at the absolute highest levels. And then you look at his coaching experience, coaching under Pete Carroll in the heyday of USC, and then with the Seahawks. He was an assistant coach for national championships and an assistant coach for Super Bowls. So he understands the game, not just on the sideline, but behind the sideline. Then when you add the element of just his natural charisma and his energy, I mean, he's a 5-tool coach. We talk about 5 tools in baseball. Ken Norton is a 5-tool coach, and it's just something that UCLA has not had for many years, and you're seeing it. He is someone, along with the Jerry Neuheisel, along with the Deshaun Foster, can relate to the modern athlete in a way Chip can't, in a way Bill McGovern can't. And so they are able to complement the skill set that Chip brings to the table. Chip brings X's and O's. Chip brings strategy. But we all know that Chip struggles in the recruiting game. Now he's been able to offset those weaknesses with a Ken Norton Jr. and his band of brothers who are passionate about UCLA. There's no coincidence here, Will, that it's a calling. To be a coach at UCLA, it's a calling. You can't just look at this as a stepping stone job to someone else. There's no coincidence. Neuheisel, Foster, Ken Norton Jr., all alums. This is where they want to be. They want to revitalize this program to where it was in the 90s and the 80s and the 50s and the 60s. And so that's what's so encouraging and why this is such a slam dunk hire. And I think this is just the beginning for Ken Norton Jr. and just the beginning for UCLA in the transfer portal this year.
Yeah, and, it puts the emphasis on the defensive side of the football, which all UCLA fans can agree is the area that really needs to turn up. I'm not worried about the offense. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be next year. We'll get to that a little bit later in the podcast. We will be talking about some of the other transfers that may potentially come in. Big name from Clemson that I do want to get into. But the defensive side of the football, just investing in that side and acquiring top-level talent like this linebacker, Oluwafemi, this is huge for UCLA. This is one of the bigger transfers we've had, and I would say it's up there, maybe just under the likes of a Zach Charbonnet transfer and coming in terms of the impact play this guy could potentially bring for next season. So I think it is a huge, huge victory for UCLA, and I'm excited to get some more Ethan Young booms moving forward. So we got a lot of good things to look forward to for UCLA. A bowl game was selected for UCLA, Madman. We are going to the Sun Bowl, El Paso, Texas. We're taking on the 8-4 Pittsburgh Panthers. I've done some nice research on this game, and what I didn't know was it was a rivalry. According to the article I read by Sam Connon, from 1958 to 1971, they played each other 14 straight seasons. UCLA took the last 9. This will be UCLA's 4th trip to the Sun Bowl as a whole, playing the Pittsburgh Panthers. A lot to look forward to here. I mean, Keaton Slovis, ironically, the quarterback we were familiar with our crosstown rival, is now in the transfer portal, so he will not be playing for Pitt. But this is a team with a lot of talent, and I think what stands out to me the most is how capable this Pittsburgh Panthers defense is when you go up against the likes of a UCLA offense. That's going to be the real matchup I'm going to be looking for. What are some of the initial thoughts that, jump off the page for you, Madman, when coming into this bowl game for UCLA?
Yeah, Will, it's a mix of emotions. I can't lie. I was a little bit disappointed with the location. I think Sun Bowl is that, when you play sort of credit card roulette at the dinner table with, your buddies, and you say, last card standing is the one who pays. Well, in the Pac-12 bowl scenarios, it feels like the Sun Bowl is the last card, that the person that goes to the Sun Bowl, even though there's some lower tier bowls below that, feels like they're the ones who got the short end of the stick, just given kind of location and enthusiasm and opponents sometimes. So I was a little bit disappointed. I would have loved to have seen a Vegas Bowl to send DTR off the right way, or being at home for the LA Bowl against a rematch with Fresno State and Hainer could have been really cool. So that aside, I think it's going to be a really fun matchup. Pat Narduzzi is a hard-nosed blue-collar coach, and I think not only does UCLA and Pitt share a rivalry from 50 years ago, they also share a rivalry in their hatred for USC because UCLA, obviously, that's the arch rival, the arch nemesis, and Pitt, of course, in the offseason has had so many ill feelings towards USC with losing Jordan Addison. So I agree with you, Will. I think the breakdown here is Pitt has been battle-tested, not just this year, but for a few years. They really like to line it up and get after it in the trenches. I think the key element is, again, going to be this UCLA run offense against this Pitt run defense. And whoever is able to kind of consistently win the line of scrimmage there and win more battles than not is ultimately going to come out on top. I think it's going to be really fascinating to see who from UCLA plays. I think whether Charbonnet plays, whether DTR plays, whether some guys on the defense play, I think that's going to be interesting to see moving forward. And I think, again, for the Pitt side of the ball, they just lost their starting quarterback. So what Pat Narduzzi can kind of dial up with a backup quarterback, probably more emphasis on the run game and play action and being a little bit more conservative, wanting to keep the game close going into the fourth quarter and then out executing UCLA is what I expect his game plan to be. Whereas on the UCLA side, I think Chip is going to really see a combination of his stalwarts from this year, but also being able to develop the guys that are going to come in next year, a la the Yankoffs and the Keegan Joneses and the Hardens. And I expect them to get a lot of touches. And hopefully we see the likes of TMA and Loya and Kaz Allen and others get the ball as well. So I think this is a really nice opportunity for a bridge game. Again, this is only the fourth with a win. This will only be the fourth time since 2000 that UCLA could finish a season ranked in the top 25. This is also going to be a school record tie 10 wins, which has happened 3 other times as well since 2000. So a lot to play for historically for UCLA. Get Chip to that double-digit wins at UCLA in year 5 and really build going into next year.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it's not the bowl game I wanted, but it's nice just to be in bowl consideration, period, again. Do you know what I mean? Like, beggars can't be choosers, if you know what I mean. And Sun Bowl, yeah, would I have liked the Vegas Bowl more? Of course. Would I have liked, LA Jimmy Kimmel Bowl? That would have been great too. But it's nice to just have a game December 31st and wake up in bowl season and have your team coming out there and competing. And you made an excellent point. The run game of Pitt, defensively against the run game of UCLA, that is going to be such a fun battle because it's two top 10 respective, teams in the rankings. Pittsburgh allows 95.5 yards a game on the ground this year. That's 7th in the entire nation. UCLA is the 4th highest rushing offense in the entire country. So you're going to get, the two horns coming at each other from the Bulls in this game. It's going to be a beautiful sight to see. But, you're looking at the Pitt. Yes, they're without a quarterback in Kean Slovis. It looks like Nick Patty would probably be the favorite to start right now. But their running back, Israel Abanaconda, this guy ran for 1,400 yards and 20 touchdowns this year. So this guy can, they can move the ball on the ground as well. They've got an excellent young receiver in Jared Wayne, 55 catches, 1,000+ yards, average 18.4 yards a catch. That's more than any player on UCLA's roster. So it's going to be a fun game, and I'm excited to see how it plays out. A lot of studs on the defense. We'll break it down more in depth moving forward, but we want to kind of give our initial thoughts on UCLA going into Pittsburgh and playing at the Sun Bowl, man. This is going to be fun just to have that game on December 31st. We're really looking forward to it. Final piece of the puzzle here for this Bruin Bible update, DJ Uiagalelei. I think this is a controversial name for some, when it comes to should the UCLA Bruins go after him, should they not? From all the signs we've gathered, he has officially entered his name into the transfer portal. And from all the rumor mills, everything telling us he's likely to go west. West Coast is what it's sounding like. I've heard UCLA's name. I wouldn't count out the likes of, Arizona State now with a coordinator there. Fresno State is a name that I've heard could be a potential spot for him, given the success that they've had recently. DJ Uiagalelei, am I crazy in saying that this would be a potential phenomenal fit for UCLA, given his 2 years starting, the caliber of recruit this guy was coming out of high school, and just the natural ability this guy possesses with the ball in his hands? I mean, some people do not want him, but, I think for the most part, he did some really good things for Clemson this year, had a rough game against South Carolina, which they benched him now for Cade Klubnik. But, man, with a team that, has a hole at quarterback coming in next year, you could do a lot worse than DJ Uiagalelei. Madman, give me your thoughts on this, because I'm all in. I think it's time. I saw the clip of him as a teammate, after he got benched for Cade Klubnik, and he had nothing but great things to say. That's the type of character I want in my locker room if I'm a UCLA fan. Give me your thoughts on Uiagalelei potentially going to the Bruins.
Yeah, Will, I think that he is quite the prospect, DJ Uiagalelei. And, you have to sort of go back to his pedigree from a high school perspective. He was a 5-star recruit out of St. John Bosco. He played arguably what many high school insiders in Southern California call the greatest game in the history of Southern California high school sports at the football level. He was dueling with Bryce Young at Mater Dei for that CIF championship, fell behind in that game 28-5. And St. John Bosco comes back and beats Mater Dei 39-36. So 3 years ago, this guy outdueled Bryce Young, who essentially, along with Caleb Williams, is the co-best player in America in college football the last 2 years. So that just tells you where that ceiling is. He was so decorated. He was 5-star, scooped up by Dabo Swinney and Clemson to really take the reins from Trevor Lawrence. I mean, we're talking about the elite of elite. Clemson really looked at him as being chapter 3 of the Dabo dynasty, with Deshaun Watson handing the keys off to Trevor Lawrence, who was then going to hand the keys off to Uiagalelei. And for whatever reason, it just hasn't worked out at Clemson. I think it's a combination of him being a little bit more of a late bloomer in terms of progression reads, in terms of just pocket awareness and confidence. There was a little bit of a concern last year with his weight. He dropped the weight. He was skinnier. He was leaner. He was a little bit quicker. But I think some of the more cerebral elements of the game are still where there's a gap. And I think it just goes to show you, Will, that even though you're 5-star in high school, that growth trajectory takes some time. There's some guys who can sort of walk in and be true freshmen and lead a team to the promised land. Others need to be redshirted. Others, it takes a little bit more time, a couple of years. And I think Uiagalelei is definitely in that latter space. But I think when you combine who he is physically, 6'4", 6'5", dual threat, and then when you combine that in Chip Kelly's system, that's always going to be run first. Now he's that threat in the RPO game to keep it. And then you can create all of those mesh concepts off of that in terms of the horizontal pass game, getting the tight ends involved, an occasional deep shot. He sort of fits seamlessly into what UCLA is trying to do, because it wasn't really all on him at Clemson. A lot of conversation around, was Clemson running a little bit of an archaic offense? Do they have the coaching personnel on the offensive side to keep up with the rapid change of modernization in college football? So I think this is an opportunity where Joel Klatt said it earlier. This could be a real win-win scenario for both him as well as UCLA. You mentioned Fresno State, Arizona State. I think Oregon State is someone to really consider as well for him as a threat to UCLA, given that they have such a great run game. Jonathan Smith is building a great culture there. Corvallis is sort of a low-key place. And by all indications, he seems to be a low-key kind of guy. And I think that enables a great potential relationship with him and Chip, being a little bit more under the radar. You love the values there. You love the family pedigree. I mean, how fun would it be, Will, if next year or the year after, his brother, Mateo Uiagalelei, 5-star athlete, just won the national championship with St. John Bosco, getting recruited heavily by SC, and potentially looking at him as an athlete on the defensive line, what have you. Can you imagine a scenario where little brother is trying to tackle big brother and get a sack on him in the victory bell game in 23 and 24? How fun would that be? Truly epitomizing the notion of house divided. So I think this would be a home run scenario. because I think Uiagalelei has the athletic upside greater than an Ethan Gargers. I think right now he's more game ready than a Justin Martin, who I still think is about a year away from stepping onto the field. And I think all the physical tools are there. And in many ways, this is the perfect project where you put this 6'5", 240-pound kid with a great arm and bring him into the lab, and you bring him into Chip Kelly Institute of Football, and Chip gets to sort of work with him and get in the lab with him to refine his game. This could really be a match made in heaven and make things very seamless for UCLA moving forward, Will. The return of Michael Penix Jr. was big noise. We don't know what Cam Rising is going to do. We know Caleb Williams is coming back. So the Pac-12 is going to be locked and loaded with quarterbacks, and UCLA is going to need big-time signal caller to compete next year, and DJU is definitely capable of being that guy.
Yeah, close to 6,000 yards passing in his career, 36 touchdown passes. And the underrated part, he's not the runner DTR was, but this guy close to 1,000 yards career rushing, 15 touchdowns. So you get down to the goal line. This guy's kind of built like a Cam Newton, 6'5" in stature, and the way he can run the football in the red zone. So there's a threat there for DJU to be really special at UCLA if he were to choose to come to the Bruins. A lot of great things going on. And, I'm looking at the transfer portal. There's a lot of great guys. And I think I would take DJU over the likes of Devin Leary. Spencer Sanders, a 4-year starter at Oklahoma, is now on the mark, Oklahoma State. Hudson Card, the backup for Texas, but DJU is the belle of the ball when it comes to this. Let's make no mistake about it. That should be the guy UCLA is putting all their chips on the table for. And if we can get him, I don't see why there's a reason we don't get 9 to 10 wins with DJU at quarterback next year in the Pac-12. Do you think that's a ludicrous statement? Because I think a lot of people are expecting UCLA to fall off after a lot of senior and upper class talent, would be gone.
No, Will, I don't think that's unreasonable at all. I think I would sort of counter a little bit in that he's the belle of the ball. And I think the kid Sims out of Georgia Tech is the other one to keep an eye on because, again, he's coming from a similar school, similar academic environment, similar social environment in Georgia Tech. And that's just big on Chip's list. And Sims was also 5-star in high school, dual threat, and has made himself available. So those would be my two kind of cool horses leading the race. UCLA has already offered DJU. His father announced that on Twitter for him. So let's see. I think he's got an offer from UCLA. He's waiting on what else is transpiring in terms of the market. So I love our chances. And I think, Will, you're spot on. I think it's going to be, and we'll certainly get more into this in the offseason, but the conference schedule gets tougher next year. Make no mistake about it. At USC, at Washington, at Oregon State, there's some tougher games next year overall. So having that big signal caller is going to be key. I think if they can put DJU together with solidifying who's going to be in that running game, and I still think this offense needs a deep threat, Will. I think if they can get kind of the deep threat with the DJU, you know what you're getting from Chip in terms of the running game. And I have been of the opinion that the defense obviously has been much maligned, but this defense was still good enough to get UCLA potentially to 11-1. The UCLA lost 2 games with their offense on the field having the ball last. And when you look at a historical type of year of quarterback in the Pac-12 this year, we mentioned Caleb, who's a Heisman finalist, most likely the Heisman winner, Bo Nix, Penix Jr., Cam Rising, DTR, DeLora, Cam Ward. Cam Ward is the 7th best quarterback in this conference. This was a historic year offensively. Even the best defense in the Pac-12 far and away was Utah. And in that first meeting against USC, they gave a 42 at home to USC. And that was the best defense in the conference. So this was just a year of scoring in the Pac-12. The offenses are just significantly ahead of the defenses, given the talent level. And I expect that to be the case again next year. So for me, UCLA is going to have to score to be a viable candidate for 9 to 10 wins. DJU is one pillar, and I think they're going to need a deep threat as another pillar along with the running game. They can get those two things. I don't think you're crazy at all, Thriller. You never are.
Well, I love to hear it, man. Make sure you're following the Madman on social media. He's got the best, writing of our UCLA, fans and contingent. So make sure you're following everything he's writing for LA Football Network. We got great things coming in store for you guys, so don't go anywhere. Make sure you're following the UCLA LA Football Network channel on YouTube, our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Yes, we're on TikTok. We got a lot of great things coming your way. So don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be back very soon. Bruin Bible, we are officially